I'm on a big kick about lawns and the productive use of land. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. If you've got a lawn bigger than an acre, then you're missing an opportunity on your homestead to actually have productive use, including calories, that most people miss. So I was talking to a guy, and they were talking about a bunch of us were standing around. They're talking about a zero-turn mower. And one of the gentlemen exclaims that a zero-turn mower can mow 7 acres of lawn in under an hour. As if it was an achievement, as if this was something of value. And I said, look, if you've got that much lawn, you might as well get a cow. Now, my joke is that the lawn, beyond a few square feet, 2,000-3,000 square feet, is unproductive in the sense that it doesn't deliver any output. It is something that requires inputs. It is something that requires effort, but it doesn't produce anything. Now, yes, you can take the lawn clippings and you can turn it into compost. You can take the lawn clippings or allow the lawn to grow a little longer and make it into hay. But there's a point when you were talking about lawns, that manicured landscape, that clean, even cut, that monoculture of grass that has near zero value, especially when you get into larger scale. So if you've got 2 or 3 acres of lawn and you're out there every Saturday, you have to ask the question, who are you really working for? If that lawn was hay, it would be a polyculture of various different grasses and legumes and different types of things, and it would be feeding animals. And you would be working for the animals. But the animals are going to give the ultimate sacrifice of themselves to feed your family or to provide a means to your family. So it's a fair exchange of activity. If you're mowing your lawn on your beautiful zero-turn mower, the mower has maintenance. The mower very often will mulch all the grass clippings, so you don't actually have any clippings to turn into compost. But very often that zero-turn mower is going to require you to mow more frequently during the season, and then the rest of the season it's not doing anything. So if that same acreage was used for goats, sheep, other types of small livestock, you could actually have a secondary product or a secondary value from the effort that goes into the maintenance of that area. Now, there's nothing wrong with a zero-turn mower. If you've got miles of fence line and you want to make sure that the inside and the outside of that fence is easy to access and it's there's no overgrowth or anything, a zero-turn mower will take care of that really well. Now, also, maybe a drum flail, a flail mower might be better, or other options, but still, the key here is proper implement for the purpose. The second key is acres under management. So around your home, it is beneficial to have a lawn. Now, there are plenty of grasses and wildflowers and things that you can grow that don't actually grow very tall. So they're going to get 3 to 4 inches tall whether or not you mow them. Maybe that's a better choice for a lawn. Maybe just putting mulch down is a better choice for a lawn. It really depends on your approach. A lot of off-grid folks will have mulch because they're out in the middle of the woods somewhere. But if you have a lawn, if you have grass around your home, you don't need a massive amount of grass. You don't need acres of grass. It's better to use the land for other purposes. Now, in the permaculture design approach, you're going to have a zone 1. And the zone 1 could actually be herb gardens, vegetable gardens, other everyday use type of spaces. So if you've got a lawn there, then you don't have an herb garden. Wildflowers, for example. Some people with larger lawns or larger areas around their home, they use wildflowers. So they're going to cut strips around their house so that you can walk. And, you don't want snakes and stuff near the house. For fire control, you don't want a bunch of plants up near the house. So you cut near the house. But beyond that, it's wildflowers. It's native grasses. It's grazing land. It is areas where you might run a chicken tractor. It's areas where you might have, again, grazing sheep. Grazing sheep, originally the White House had grazing sheep in front of it, and the lawn was mowed by sheep. Pasture is better than lawns. Another important factor, too, is your lines of sight. So you may mow the outline of an area while maintaining the internal of the area for other uses. You may put up temporary fencing. You might put up permanent fencing. The key here is for the input that you're putting into the space, are you able to produce a value add? Mulching your lawn clippings or composting them is not a high value activity. In fact, if you allow the grass to grow a little bit longer, you long cut the grass with a sickle or a scythe, that grass could go right into animals or chicken bedding or under your rabbits or someplace where it's going to make a better compost. It'll be part of the nutrient cycle of the organic waste on your garden. This is a mindset that we teach here. It's a different mindset. It's more of an agrarian, high utility mindset. I want every acre of land doing something of value with minimum inputs, meaning you're not having to feed everything, and then the maximum outputs. So we want to move animals over the land rather than putting them in containment, because in containment, the ground gets compacted, waste accumulates, you've got to go shovel the manures out. If you're moving the same animals over land, the manure is evenly distributed over the grasses. You can simply drag the field to spread that out, unless you have chickens. Chickens can spread it out for you. And then ultimately, those nutrients go back into the soil and turn into carbon. We want these carbon cycles. The grass grows up tall enough and it gets enough growth before the animals get back on the grass, and then the grass gets mowed down again, and the process continues. We're adding biomass to the soil, but we're also adding microorganisms to the soil. So as the grass passes through a ruminant animal, it's going to gain biological organisms such as the acidophilus and all these digestive enzymes that humans use, but it's also going to gain the digestive enzymes that the animals use. So now the grass is actually feeding them back healthy enzymes, healthy accumulated materials. Now, depending on your environment, you may have deep-rooted grasses that are actually going to pull up minerals. You may have comfrey. You may have crops that are simply fodder crops like alfalfa, hemp, different things like that. The key is you're not just putting money into your property and not getting anything out of it. When you mow your grass, if you bag it and then you compost it, that's a good start. Maybe you live in a neighborhood where you have to mow the grass. But if you set the setting of your mower up higher, you actually have to mow it less frequently. You'll actually have a healthier lawn, and then you'll shade out all the weeds. So we have a program called Year-Round Green, and it's all about how to manage your landscape in a more holistic way. But here's the bigger problem. There are areas where social pressure will induce the regular maintenance of your lawn. They won't allow you to grow your lawn out 18 inches or 23 inches. It's going to be where you get a good cut for hay. If you're in an urban space and you have to adjust for this, you're going to do things like widen your landscaped areas. So you're going to use natural wood mulch that's going to decompose every year, but you're going to widen your growing spaces out, maybe put in raised beds. You're going to find ways to use the lawn. Lawns themselves are status symbols because they serve larger social needs. So the government, and this is not a conspiracy, Levittown actually proposed that if everybody had lawns, they're less likely to become communist. So they'll be so busy working on the lawn that they won't have a chance to read out, the Communist Manifesto, and they will stay American. Well, the same mentality works for staying a consumer rather than becoming a producer, for staying a loyal, being so distracted that you don't have time to ask questions about poor political decisions. We're looking at both the social engineering of the activity and the utilitarian value of the activity. So if you're spending, there was one neighbor of mine spending $9,000 a year on the maintenance of their lawns. Okay. Now, $9,000 a year for an acre or two of landscaping their yard was the best. It was incredible. They had bragging rights about this, but they had money going in rather than money circulating in an economy. The money was circulating in someone else's economy because the landscaper got all the money and all the people that came out to work on the house all the time got the money. They didn't get the money to come back. There was no way for the money to come back. They eventually sold that house and moved in with their parents. And I suspect there were a number of reasons for doing that. Other than, their parents were getting elderly, so that's good. But ultimately, it's not the very best use of resources. As their kid got a little older and was going to go to private school, investing in their kid was a better option. There were design factors that were in place that made it more expensive than it needed to be, because the landscapers, they are in the business of cutting your grass, not in the business of saving you money. But again, think about these things in your day-to-day life. Do you have animals that are primarily pets? You got that piggy and you said, oh, this is a beautiful piggy, and piggies are so smart. And now the piggy's 300 pounds and it's not doing anything. There's nothing wrong with giving that animal the very best life it can have. And then at the end of its life, which may be cut prematurely short because you're going to put it in your freezer, there's nothing wrong with that as long as you have that understanding up front. As long as you understand you're producing pork, you're producing beef, you're producing goat or chicken. You're not accumulating pets. Now, again, if you're running a petting zoo, it's a different story, but ultimately, most of the subscribers to this newsletter are running homesteads. They're feeding themselves with that garden space. They may grow biomass in an idle bed in order to mulch out a different bed, but they're doing it with purpose. They're doing it with meaning rather than accident. You'll get better production, you'll get better growth, and you'll have fewer inputs. So growing a cover crop may seem equivalent to growing a lawn because some effort goes into a cover crop and there's nothing to eat out of it. Well, that cover crop, though, is drawing up nutrients, drawing up minerals. It's fixing nitrogen in the soil. And so you have an accumulation of value that makes the next crop even better. I'm going to leave you with 2 tips before I go. Number 1 is the time frame. Today you might have a lawn and you're going to transition to a more productive landscape. Well, that's an edible landscape. It's going to take a little time to understand what plants are best for your environment, what you can get away with and what you can't at a property. I have seen in my area where I've gotten in a lot of trouble for having gardens. I do know people that have shrubbery that's actually bay leaves, and then the rest of their shrubbery is edible herbs and medicinal herbs. And from the street, you don't know the difference. If you know what you're looking at, but it's fine. They got rosemary and they've got thyme and they've got fennel and stuff like that. It looks beautiful. They're way more talented on the aesthetics than I am. But ultimately, the time frame is important. Give yourself the time to practice. Give yourself the time to transition. Give yourself the time to do and make action. Now, the next part is the design plan. If you design for high productivity, you're more likely to have high productivity. You can make better decisions. You can focus your effort. You can drive forward the change that you want in the world. A lot of times the lawn, the aesthetics, the social cohesion tied to having a home look a certain way is designed so you support someone else's objectives. If you sit down and come up with a plan, I'm not saying your house needs to be messy or anything, but there is value in having an overgrown field that is going to be visited by your animals in a couple weeks. And those calories in the field, in the grass and in the biomass that's suited and best for those animals, that doesn't require pesticides, it doesn't require the herbicides, it doesn't require mowing. And by the way, you might mow your fields periodically. That's what the education is about. But the point I'm making here is that when those animals hit that land, that is paradise for them. That is pure enjoyment, and you can go out there and watch those sheep bounce around as they're grazing away, head down, enjoying themselves. That's what we're looking for. We're looking for that high utility value. Whether you're raising fiber or you're raising meat or you're raising a combination of animals, the key is that symbiotic, that interconnectivity, that relationship with what it is that you want to create for your small farm or homestead. I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead. Thanks for listening today. If you have questions about what I've covered or you want specific design advice, visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org. Go to the contact page and ask your questions. We also have a newsletter that shares email tips, ideas, and concepts that can help you get started right away. And then when we find useful resources, we also point those out as well. The podcast itself has got hundreds of episodes. And again, if you have any questions, visit us at www.prosperityhomestead.org, where we help you get the very best from your land with a small farm, homestead, or an estate. Thanks for listening.